All right, team. Thank you for joining us for our not Good Friday, Great Friday Zoom call. It's going to be a great Friday. We've got Donnie Brookman with us today. Donnie is the Regional Technology Director for the North Florida region for Keller Williams. So he's got about 8,000 agents looking to him every day for help with technology and insight into what they can be doing with that technology to move their business forward. And the reason I asked him to join us today is because he has been working with a lot of top agents and top teams in our region, a lot of the people that we've been talking to on these calls, and kind of helping them with the technology solutions and how they can deploy that in their business right now with everything that's going on. He's also been getting a tremendous amount of insights from working with those teams. He was telling me some of that stuff. And I asked him just to kind of share some of those stories with you. And then also he's got a little demo he's going to do for us today about something you guys can be doing right now around some of the virtual work that we've all been talking about. I know some people are doing that already. Others have been asking, well, how do I get started with that? So he's going to give us a little insight into that too. So let me bring Donnie up here and we'll get started. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I've been watching these replays on your YouTube channel. This is awesome. What a great way for everyone to kind of get together in the morning, get mindset straight and ready to start the day. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for that introduction. My name's Donnie. I work as the regional technology trainer for the North Florida region. I see a lot of familiar faces here hey, how's it going? As people are starting to unmute their cameras. I see a lot of familiar faces, also some new ones. A little bit more about myself as well, because I'm going to be speaking a little bit to those experiences today. I also started my career here at Keller Williams as the Director of Operations for Jessica Estrada. She's an agent out of the Orlando Lake Nona Market Center with the Wolf Group. So we're also going to be talking about some strategies that I've used, because one thing that's always been a consistent in my life is technology. I love to innovate with technology in all aspects of my life. In my personal house, if you've been in one of my trainings, you might have heard how I can communicate with my, I'll just call her my virtual assistant for right now, because we know if I say her name, she might respond and start causing some havoc in my house or in your house personally. I love to use technology to make life simpler and easier. So right now we're all in an interesting predicament where we are being asked to operate differently in a new world. We have the stay-at-home order, we have the government, we have NAR, we have our sellers that we need to adhere to make sure that we're all still completing those important daily activities. So I've been talking with agents around the region over the past couple of weeks to discover what they are doing to pivot. And one of the ways that we've been talking about them is constant that I've seen is nobody's changing their game. Nobody's changing their strategy around the game. All they're changing is their playbook. So for example, yesterday I talked with the Irons team, and I'm going to actually switch right here. I'm going to start sharing my screen if that's okay with you, Kieran.
Yep.
And I talked to the Irons team at length yesterday, because what I learned as I was talking with them is they've always hosted home buyer workshops. The buyers agents on their team love to host home buyer workshops. It's not a new activity for their team. However, today they are going to be now hosting them virtually. So over the past couple of weeks, they've pivoted to start hosting these virtually. And they were so gracious yesterday to not only share this checklist, which I'm going to post in your closed Facebook group so that you all have access to this. And then Kieran, I'll give you a little link that you can put in the YouTube description below so somebody could download it from there as well.
Okay.
But this checklist is how they are changing the way they're hosting their buyer seminar. And I'm also going to post, this was a recorded interview that I did with them yesterday, so it's available for everyone to rewatch and see the entire process from start to finish. Kelly talks about their director of operations. One of the ways they're attracting buyers to the seminar is using social ads and paid advertisements through campaigns. She offers you all of her verbiage, the exact layout of the ad, what her settings and parameters were for the ad. But I'm not pointing this out because I'm saying this is a strategy that everyone should just immediately adopt. What I'm pointing out is that they already were comfortable with home buying seminars. They're not adding a new lead generation strategy to their daily activities. What they did was they recognized that this lead generation strategy was in their top 3 over the past 12 months related to closed units. And they focused on how can we pivot those strategies first. Because I don't know about you, Kieran, but one thing that I've seen at this time where we have time on our hands, some people tend to get creative. excited. We see a shiny object and something new. There's a lot of lead generation strategies that we are already using that we can easily pivot to move virtual so we can safely complete them. So yesterday we talked about the home buyer checklist. They started putting it on paper. And the two of the biggest differences that I pulled away from this, number one, is I asked Suzette, who's the agent that was hosting these, what the biggest difference was between a in-person and a virtual seminar. And her biggest difference was that it took less time. What took her about an hour and a half or 2 hours at times, depending on questions and activities. She's also inviting her lender to co-host these as well. So they're talking financing, they're talking intricate details about the home buying process with everyone who's on the call. She said that it takes a lot less time. So setting really clear expectations for, if you were used to an hour and a half, knock that down to an hour and see how much content you could get through a Zoom. She's hosting these through Zoom, you'll learn.
So let me ask you a question real quick about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you said they're driving traffic to these online buyer seminars through targeted Facebook ads using campaigns?
That is correct.
So not only are they getting someone to attend the seminar, which is helping them build a relationship and develop a rapport, but they're also capturing all that person's data through the campaign they're running. So now they have that lead in their database already, right?
Absolutely. So that's one of the points that they were really adamant on making yesterday. When you're hosting this virtual home buying workshop, you want to be able to capture their information because our job hasn't changed. We need to capture those contact details so that we can put them in our database and start building that relationship. That means that we have to have a way to reach out to them. So if we're offering all of the information without collecting anything, we don't have the tools we need to do that diligent follow-up. This was just one source that they used, Kieran. Another interesting thing is Suzette took her list from her in-person workshops because we know sometimes people register and they don't show up. She took that list. Anybody who had registered for an in-person workshop previously all got invited to our virtual workshops. They have a list. So all of this is contributing to Suzette's home buyer workshop list where you are invited every single week to the next home buyer workshop until one of two things happen. You either say, please stop calling me and contacting me, or you show up to the home buyer workshop so that you can move forward in the process and that follow-up afterwards.
Right. And I love that because like some of our agents have shared stories about how they're doing, like you said, they have extra time, so they're getting creative, right? So they're doing some of these online service-oriented things, like whether it's one of our teams has a buyer's agent who has a master's in education. So she did a session one day around how to homeschool your kids, but I think it was targeted to their database, which is great and extremely service-oriented, and you can do that. But if you run in tandem a targeted Facebook or social media or Google AdWords campaign just to the general public, well, now in addition to pouring into your current client base, you're also capturing new business. So that's awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. And if that agent is consistently pouring into her database through those personal touches, she's adding so much value into their lives because they're doing the same thing here for buyers. So it's the same concept either way. We want to extract personal information and communicate back with them to provide value that's unique. So for that example, it's home buyers. She had people who are homeschooling. She had people joining the call that were homeschooling their kids, and she could offer tips and her expertise in that. The same thing's happening here. Suzette's listening for keywords from the buyers during these seminars. If they mention down payment assistance, she's following up, not with a generic email to everyone who attended, but that person's getting unique email, a unique piece of contact specifically about down payment assistance, specifically about credit repair. Or I made the joke yesterday. She says it hasn't happened to her yet, but I'm waiting for it to be that $1 million cash buyer who's ready to go ahead and start looking at the house tomorrow to write a cash offer. Because we'd all like that to happen. The last thing that I wanted to mention about this that I think is low tech, but really, really important is I wanted to show you this checklist because they're putting it in writing. They're taking what they're changing and they're putting it in writing. Because the last question that I asked them in yesterday's interview was what they've learned from hosting these. And they were both really honest and said that they are failing forward. They're starting to use these virtually. And every time they host a virtual virtual home buying workshop, they go back to this list and they tweak it for the next one that they're going through. So now they're starting to talk about adding in a smart plan to follow up. So having a smart plan for down payment assistance, for credit home repair so that they can personalize that message and automate that follow-up afterwards. Because one thing that they both said unanimously, both direction or operations side and agent side, is they know that after this, eventually, once we're all able to go back out and safely be able to show homes the way that we used to, they don't plan on stopping hosting these virtual home buying seminars in the future. This is an activity they said they are going to be adopting into their business moving forward.
So it's going to be their new normal.
This is going to be a part of their new normal. Absolutely.
Cool.
I wanted to also just highlight a few other things that Keller Williams is doing to help us, and things that specifically in Sarasota.
Hey, Donnie.
Hey, Tim, what's up?
Hey, before you go into the next one, was that ad created in Command, or was it created outside and brought in?
That is correct. That ad was created and ran through Command.
That's awesome.
Yep. So you'll see right here, it has that little Keller Williams that it came through, but she built this in Command. And Tim, I know that you are familiar with these. You know that we have those expert targeting tools.
Yep.
She did use some ad targeting in the expert category. However, for those of you who might not be comfortable with those expert targeting, remember, when you get to this spot, you can also turn those off and have Command do all of the work for you, finding that target audience.
Yep, absolutely.
Or just reach out to Tim and have him teach you the expert mode.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's really not that hard.
There you go. I think the hardest part, Tim, is identifying what your interest list is, because that can be different based on your physical location.
And
what the interest list that produces high results in Sarasota might not be the same interest list that produces high results here in Orlando.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I love that. Absolutely. Thank you. One other thing that I wanted to highlight that everyone has right now, and it's live in the Stellar MLS. So Keller Williams, as soon as this started, pivoted some development hours to start bringing some virtual experiences into our consumer-facing products. One of those is by taking the virtual tours that you add into the MLS and automatically adding them to our consumer-facing products. Now, when I was talking to Kieran about this earlier this week, I mentioned that virtual tours can mean different things to different people. There are several different types of virtual tour experiences. So I pulled up the MLS here, the Stellar MLS. I believe that we all operate on the same ad edit form. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So this works perfect. So right here under your listing distribution, you want to make sure that your settings, my settings haven't changed from this, that I'm sending my listing to the internet. I am allowing it to go on third party. Now, right here under marketing links and information, the MLS will automatically create a virtual tour for you. It's a type of virtual tour. And if you actually look right here at this question mark, it tells you that their virtual tour that's automatically created, it's defaulted and turned on to yes, is the first 5 images that you add to this property in a slideshow with some music behind it. It's a great virtual tour. There's no extra time needed. If you have that marked yes, the link will appear right here in Virtual Tour Link 1 and will syndicate to all of those important websites that the Keller Williams Listing Service is sending them to. What I want to talk about is some ways that you can elevate that virtual home buying or virtual tour experience. And one way that my team's been using it for several years, we use what we call a Matterport tour. And I hesitate to ever even introduce this as a virtual tour because it's so much more than the traditional virtual tour. And you can see right here, I have my Matterport link. So we use a local photographer here. I know Kieran mentioned that you guys have a local vendor in the Sarasota area who also offers Matterport tours. I have my unbranded Matterport tour here. So what happens is when when a consumer is shopping on my consumer-facing website, now, and this works for other third-party applications as well, as long as the website's receiving this information from Stellar MLS, this will work. But for Keller MLS, for our Keller Williams agent sites that I built in Command, right here on top of my photos, no matter what photo I'm looking at, I always have a link taking me directly to that virtual tour link 1 from the MLS. So it's syndicating from the MLS to our agent sites. And this is a Matterport 3-dimensional tour. So from that agent site, looking at the listing, a consumer can actually physically walk through and look 360 the entire property, even up the stairs, just as if they were walking through and walking through the property physically, seeing every little detail about the property. It's a great way to use this. This is something that we started using in our business for, we started specifically with luxury deals. This can be a little, there is of course an extra cost associated. So our marketing strategy was at week 2 is when we would implement a Matterport 3-dimensional tour. Right now we're pivoting that and we changed the playbook. Every listing is getting a Matterport tour added to the MLS so that we can provide this digital showing experience to all buyers. Why we might have those physical limitations being able to go and see the property.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be, I want to say it was Laura Road we had on a call a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was Nikki, but one of our rainmakers here in Sarasota said that the vendor they used for this was offering reduced cost on these services right now. So I'll have to go back and find out who that was, but I think normally this costs about $300 or so. And I think they said they were doing it for close to half that price. So if you think about it, adding $150, let's say, to the cost of marketing your listing, well, you're probably not doing as many open houses. You're probably not doing other things that would normally cost you that money anyway. So, you know, you're saving the money on those things. You can spend it here and get a good return on it.
And
Can I say one thing too?
CMS.
A lot of the people who are using Matterport are charging half price. I know Chad from CMS told me that he's charging half price. So it's $150 for up to 3,000 square feet. And he's also pulling 3D pictures out of the Matterport separately that you can put onto like our landing pages and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool and it's really affordable right now.
So not only is it affordable, but if I fast forward 4 years ago, our first Matterport tour experience as a team, Jessica and I, we were taking on an expired listing. It was an expired luxury listing. It was listed at $870,000, I think was the list price that we took on the expired listing at. It'd been on the market for just over a year. It was in a very unique area here in Orlando. We did a 3D Matterport tour after having it on the market for about 30 days. And we attracted a cash, this is a unique case, but we attracted a cash buyer at that price point who lived on the coast 2 hours away and wrote an offer sight unseen based on just walking through this Matterport virtual tour and made it to the closing table. So this is something that is not new to our business, and I definitely would recommend adopting this moving forward after this. Take advantage of the low cost. Your photographer's offering that now. This is a great way to help weed out as well. When I'm going through, when you have a home that's difficult to show, if I have a Matterport tour and somebody's texting me about a showing, the first thing I do is send this link back to them. Because another creative way that we use this link all the time is, this is the unbranded one that goes in the MLS. They also produce a branded one that has all of our contact details in the bottom corner. They can see all of our information. I take that full link, and what I do is I buy a domain. I buy 115conradcourt.info. I buy that domain from either GoDaddy or Google Domains. I buy the .info because it's cheaper. It's less expensive than a .com. So 115conradcourt.info costs around $2.18 for the year in GoDaddy. And then I can forward that domain to my branded Matterport tour. So that way, when they go to 115 Conrad Court, I'm controlling their destination. This is a sold listing, so it's not going to work since we sold that one last month. But now I'm sending them to that Matterport tour, and I don't have to remember the link or tell them to go anywhere. I can give them one easy click destination to get to that Matterport tour.
Cool. I love that. That's a way to, I know a lot of agents use Matterport right now, and they use it on, like Donnie was saying, certain price points. But if you know, when you take a listing as a realtor, you're assuming the responsibility of incurring some marketing costs, right? I think everybody would agree with that. That's why we don't take our iPhones out and do photography. That's why we don't, we give the clients advice on staging. We do certain things to make this home look as attractive as possible. Some of those costs are going to be going away with the environment we're in right now because we can't do some of the physical things. So, move those dollars and still provide your clients with an amazing marketing campaign that the buyers are going to be able to take advantage of. So I love that.
One last thing on this, Kiram. This could also, imagine you're in a Zoom call just like we are now. We're at the front door. this could be a virtual showing using Matterport. I could not leave my house and be with a buyer on a Zoom call talking about the features. And if you practice just a little bit with the keyboard, you can actually mimic walking through the property with them and looking at each individual room, really bringing that showing experience to life.
So you're saying get on a one-on-one Zoom call with your buyer, and then you could have, instead of like 5 listings printed out that you're going to drive around and visit that day, you can do 5 virtual tours in probably 20% of the time, because you're not driving from home to home, and really deliver a very similar experience that they're not getting from other people.
Yeah. Now, and that one-on-one with your buyer, even further, next week on Tech Talk Live, we're going to be interviewing Tony Zaragami, who's hosting virtual open houses. And one of her strategies is she doesn't leave her house when she hosts a virtual open house. She talks to you just like we are right now. She gets on a Zoom call by herself and records it and posts that video to YouTube as she's talking about the property and walking through and looking at photos, looking at the MLS, showing all of those important details. A really, really great way to use this technology in a different strategy to capture a new audience.
Yeah, and we're actually going to have Tony on our Friday Zoom call for the office. So you should tune in on Wednesday, watch her on Donnie's call, and then Thursday, and then on Friday, you can have some questions ready for her based on that call that you watched. So there's a couple questions in the chat, if we can get to those before you move on. So somebody asked about, Jen Bowman asked, is there anything special you need to do to get the link to show up on the bottom right of the photos? So can we just retouch real quick on, because you went kind of fast over that. Yeah. So our consumer facing websites from KW that are part of the new command platform are capable of doing these virtual tour items. So how does that get integrated onto the website? Is there anything you have to do, or is it automatic?
It's a great question. So it's per the MLS. So right now you're in the Stellar MLS. So your experience is the same as mine here in Orlando. So that's good. I only wanted to point that out because it might be different as you start to expand and talk to other friends in Keller Williams. It is MLS specific. However, for the Stellar MLS, in your ad edit, so when you're adding and editing your residential listing field, on your last page, there's the Realtor tab. About halfway down, you're going to see an option to add under marketing links and information. There's 2 virtual tour links. I've mapped out that virtual tour link number 1. That's the link that's syndicating through to our Keller Williams consumer facing products and creating this virtual tour link on top of the photo on the listing. So virtual tour link number 1. Keep in mind that there are MLS rules and regulations around having an unbranded tour in this virtual tour link. So you'll want to make sure that you're using the proper link, because MLS will send you a notification if there is a branded link inside of there.
Okay, so that's awesome. Another question. Catherine Suras asks, even if it's someone else's listing, so another broker's listing, and they have Matterport, will this syndicate through to our consumer website also? So
Catherine, yes, if another broker has a virtual tour, it will absolutely syndicate through to your consumer facing site. So anybody that has a virtual tour there will appear. What you will notice is they're not all going to be Matterport tours. Some of them might be the slideshow that's automatically generated from the MLS, since that's a default that's turned on. You'll most likely see those. You'll see those a majority of the time, and then occasionally you'll see the Matterport or the additional 3D tours. It depends on what the agent puts in.
But they will also be unbranded tours too.
Correct. They will be unbranded tours.
So I think it's important, if you were going to do like a set of virtual showings with your buyers, you'd want to, of course, practice ahead of time, right? Pull up all those links, have the tabs ready to go, just like Donnie had when we started this call, and do a virtual preview yourself as the realtor before you bring your client in. That way you can make it nice and smooth, and do it all from your website, right? Don't be going to the Coldwell Banker website. Pull up the listing on your website and do it all from there.
Karen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe you can go through showing time now and actually schedule virtual showings. They created something last week. I haven't tried to do it yet, but I think you can actually create a series of showings through showing time.
Yes, Maureen, you can. And actually, that's a good point. If you're like me, when I log into the MLS, those messages pop up, and I have a bad habit where I either click read later or sometimes I click read now, and I don't always look at all the details. there's been a lot of really great little nuggets that the MLS has been populating for us, whether changing some of those rules during this virtual time, showing time supporting virtual showings, temporary off market, those status changes. That's a really great point to make, Maureen. Thank you for adding that.
Hey, Karen.
Yeah.
Donnie. Hey, if you use a Matterport virtual tour, it's a great idea on your public remarks, the first line, you could put in there like see Matterport virtual tour. So the public will know to go to and click on the link.
Absolutely. I love that, Charles. Thanks for sharing that.
Let's see, there were a couple other questions. Erica, do you want to just unmute yourself? You had a couple questions in there. You can ask Donnie.
Yes, sure. So my first question was, we have found that it's very difficult from a consumer perspective to find the Matterport link once it syndicates to Zillow. So do you have any advice on that? Because what we're doing, in addition to where the link is normally posted, we make sure it's on the remarks. I've even gone as far as adding the link to the picture within the MLS. Well, I'll add a screenshot, but it doesn't obviously translate into like a hyperlink for them to be able to click on. So any advice on that? And then question 2 would be, does the Matterport offer a traditional floor plan as opposed to the dollhouse view or feature, if you will?
Sure. So it isn't, it depends on your photographer. I'll do that question first.
Okay.
It depends on the photographer. There are additional services. So for example, my photographer has a Matterport basic package, and then I can optionally add on things like an external 360 view or a shot. They can do individual shots. So if there's a beautiful pergola by the water or outside in the backyard that I wanted to showcase, I could get an extra shot there. One thing that you can do is get the dollhouse. It also switches to the floor plan view for either floor. And you can go up or down the floors right here on the side. So this should be generated. You might just have to ask the photographer that you're using if there's an additional charge for that, or if this is something that you can also provide. The Zillow one, I'm actually looking it up here. So all of my consumer facing advertisements is all leading to my Keller Williams site, because I know that that's where it is. But I know a lot of consumers are shopping here. The hard part with Zillow is we don't have a lot of control over where they place buttons. And the more that we get creative, Zillow also is getting creative and moving buttons around, because their consumer is the buyer. Zillow's a mortgage company, Zillow's showing homes, Zillow's opted to buy homes now. So I don't have any best practices on what our team's doing to have them shown on Zillow. I'm really focusing on getting eyes on our products with Keller Williams and sending them straight to that Matterport tour. I think your activities of adding the hyperlink in the description is great. Adding the photos, making sure that they know that that's available and that they have the Matterport 360 or the dollhouse view tour would be great strategies to start with.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
So I think we got all the questions that were in the chat, but if anybody has any other questions they want to chime in with, just unmute yourself and let's knock those out.
I have a question. Donnie, so is there like a link that I could use in like a listing presentation that's kind of like a general Matterport to show them to try to get the listing?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So there's 2 things that you could do for that. If you have a photographer that you're planning on purchasing from, they most likely have a virtual tour example link. So they might have a portfolio of work that you could use in a listing presentation. Also, 1354 Roosevelt Street, if you go to your agent site and you go to this listing, it will look like it's branded to you. Feel free to use this virtual tour as an example at any time.
Cool. Anyone else have any questions? All right, so there was one other thing I wanted just to touch base with you on, Donnie, before we kind of wrap up. And I know we're a couple minutes over, so thank you. On our regional call earlier this week, you had talked about a training package that's available inside of Command, and they've reduced the price on that because I know a lot of agents are sitting at home right now really trying to dive into their technology and master it. One of the big things that we've had agents ask us about is how they can really master the campaigns, the designs, like the marketing pieces inside of Command, because so much of their activities have moved online. So can you talk about those training opportunities that are available? And of course, guys, you can still get your training from the Market Center. Lauren's doing a great job with her webinars. I'm jumping on one-on-one sessions with agents. You know, if you guys need it, I did one with Jose last night. We did a little training and had a beer together over Zoom. It was great. But if you really want to learn from the people that are building this stuff, there's some training packages available inside of Command. So can you just touch on that?
Absolutely. So it's just like you mentioned, there's so many different components of Command over here with all of our applets, yet they all talk to each other. So sometimes as you're putting together this puzzle of learning Command, it helps just to get a general overview. And we know that a lot of agents are looking for that. So Keller Williams started offering small group training, and they're severely discounted right now. In the upper right corner, whenever you're inside of Command, you can actually click right here on the Marketplace icon. This is what we call the Keller Williams, the KW Marketplace. So there's a lot of really great information in here, including HomeJab, which has an offering for a Matterport tour. So you can actually order a Matterport tour right here from the KW Marketplace. But as this loads over on the left, if you go to coaching and training, right here is the Command Essentials. It's currently featured, and there's a couple of different course types. I'm gonna right away click right here on additions and pricing just so that we can see this. There are Command Fast Track, Basics, Command Today, Team Functionality, Agent Essentials, or Team Essentials. All of the details are right here. You can click Buy Now to start registering. One thing that they did in addition to reducing the cost is you'll notice that a lot of these programs are actually designed to be delivered over the course of 6 to 12 weeks. Because we have a little bit of extra time on our hands now, they're building them into 2-day sessions. So you can either do 4 1.5-hour sessions for 4 weeks, or you can cram it all in 2 days, 2 half-day sessions to get all of that information in. Over on the left, you'll see there's Q&A time, there's small groups, it's up to 10 people. I personally went through it last week myself. I think we had about 8 that were total on my call. And Sarah, our new regional assistant, she's taking it this week. She has 3 people on her call, so it's almost like a private lesson. If you go right here to the feature section though, you'll see all of the different offerings, the different versions of the course. And this is where you'll see when the next available sessions are going to be offered.
And again, I just wanted to highlight this real quick. So plenty of training available from the Market Center, from myself, from Lauren, from Maureen, from Jamie. There's a ton of training resources available on YouTube with Marty Miller's videos, with Donnie's Tech Hub videos, with Sherry Ballin. There's a bunch of people doing this where you don't have to pay for it. But if you really want to get hyper focused on a deep dive into the system with the people that are actually building it, this is just another option for you. So just wanted to put that out there.
And Kieran, I actually just put a YouTube video in the channel. It's about 1.5 minutes, and it walks you through how to find those courses that I just did. So if you want to go back and find those later, there's a YouTube video in the chat box that you can watch to learn how to find those.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sticking a few minutes later with us than planned, Donnie. And then, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and wrap up. If you guys have any questions, I know a lot of you probably have a million questions in your head. Send your questions to me. I'll kind of put them all together in a neat package, send them over to Donnie if there's anything we didn't get to today. And then of course, Donnie's Tech Hub series is on Thursdays. Lauren sends that out to you guys. Like you said, this week we'll have Tony Zergami on there. Maybe tune in and check that out so that you can be ready for our call with her on Friday, have some questions lined up. And as always, Donnie, thank you so much for everything you do in the region. Yeah. And we appreciate you, and thanks for spending time with us today.
Awesome
Thank
job,
you guys
Donnie.
so much. I really appreciate you guys letting me join the call this morning.
All right. You have a good Friday.
Thank you, Donnie.
Yes. Have a safe
Bye.
and wonderful weekend, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.